I would like to introduce a good friend of mine, Jat Brainch, who has been an operator for her lifetime. She worked at different executive roles at Deutsche Telekom, Telefonica, and most recently at Inmarsat. And she brings I would say, unique 360 view, coming all from the underground of fiber through the wireless all the way to the satellite, working as a CFO, taking care of the budget, CPO spending the budget, and being a BU and sales leader to really make the business and manage P&Ls. So great that you are here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Everyone is looking towards the telecommunications sector. They're trying to embrace new technology, trying to find new ways to grow. But on the other side, the market is becoming more competitive with new players entering the market. What should change? How would you see the industry evolving over the next time?
There's been a huge amount of investments, as you say, over the last few decades in creating assets both under the ground, on the ground, and indeed in space in my most recent venture. But there has to be a real use case understanding of actually what are the assets that they need to invest in now in order to take future value. So one of the biggest challenges for the incumbents is to not lose track of where these new and exciting opportunities are going to come from and how they're going to be funded by over-indexing on their concerns about how they continue to manage people's expectations about what a traditional communications player should worry about. New players have got none of that legacy infrastructure to manage, customer bases to execute against, opportunities to maintain and grow. And they can come in with less investment, but a much fleeter model, which allows them to operate over the top and take market share.
If and you were in that position to do right now, where should they put all their bets on?
I think the key thing, first of all, for the incumbents, is to really think about how they operate today and what really drives to value. So I know operators who still run the systems that were there when we had per minute pricing 20, 30 years ago. Now the market's moved on to all-you-can-eat packages some time ago, yet that complexity still sits in their infrastructure, as does the very heavily people-led customer service units, manual network deployment and management tools and systems. All of that can now be automated, it can be run through digital systems, it can be made less complicated, quite frankly. That in itself will free up investment for some of these future opportunities. In terms of those future opportunities, it really does need operators to really understand where they create value. And in my view, there are two very distinct cases. One is the fact that they have legacy customer bases and a great deal of knowledge and understanding about those customers, why they use communication services, where they use it, how long they use it, and indeed what they use it for. The other factor is that connectivity is the absolute backbone of all these future solutions. Without connectivity, none of them work. So whilst operators are feeling somewhat threatened by these new operators coming into the market and operating on top of their infrastructure, on top of their systems, they have a unique place where they're absolutely vital. And they have an opportunity now to think about how they exploit that capability in a more dynamic fashion.
You are alluding to the power of partnerships and seeing people not as direct competitors, but seeing them more as partners who you want to work with.
Spot on. I'm a great believer in partnerships because I think innovation is happening so quickly that anyone tries to be all things to all people will probably struggle, both in terms of investment, pace of innovation, finding the right skills. I think there are an awful lot of people who've got expertise in different parts of the overall value chain that people are going to be wanting to see. And my belief is that working in partnership, you can get to the way of meeting those people's needs faster, more economically, and in a more secure and credible way than if you try to do it all yourself.
It's interesting because this is almost like a new frontier for the operators who have always kind of tried to fight everyone else. We even discussed that only 11% of the operators really think strategically about partnerships on a CEO level.
If you think about the pricing trends we've seen in communications, people worry about the huge amounts of asset infrastructure that they've had to invest in. So if prices are going down, they look across the value chain and say, how much more of this can I own? Now the challenge is the market isn't going to wait for people to learn all of those skills. They want the benefit of those value chains coming together faster. And it even matters within the communications businesses. I've just alluded to the fact I've worked for terrestrial and non-terrestrial players. Even within terrestrial, what you tend to get is operators who focus on a particular geography or a market segment, and they provide excellent solutions within those segments. What they don't always think about is the fact that a huge number of their customers move around. They move around beyond the geographies that they operate in. They operate beyond the kind of use cases that they may have designed their own propositions for. But even if you got terrestrial players to start thinking about the ubiquity of service you get from terrestrial, you could actually get greater partnerships, and that would actually drive down the cost to serve, because you would be building one set of network connections, one set of SIM cards that can talk to each other, one set of systems that support those customers, rather than replicating them across multiple operators. The beauty of extending that into other types of communication is that terrestrial players quite rightly focus on making sure they cover population density. And because of the way we use the Earth, people are concentrated in small parts of the Earth's surface. Berg did some work about a year ago where 10% of the Earth's surface is covered by terrestrial. That leaves 90% where assets are, where people travel to but not on a regular basis, which isn't connected by terrestrial, your mobile or your fixed line solutions. That's where partnering between terrestrial and non-terrestrial takes away that concern about my service only covers me if I'm here, or in this segment, or operating in this way. It becomes a more seamless, ubiquitous service, which, particularly for global organisations and governments, is going to be increasingly vital. You don't want to have to try and mesh together your own solution. You want someone that's going to create that solution for you and make sure it operates seamlessly, securely, and in a way that's easy to buy. And it's all done for you. That's where the operators can make a difference in the way they themselves operate.
And that would kind of completely change the ballgame, not trying to increase the ARPU, get an extra package out, but really grow revenues beyond their current understanding.
Correct, and I think this is the key here. It's all about data, it's about information, it's about sending intelligence signals to remote assets to lower operating costs. You have to think about where the future value is going to come from and how you can realise that, because that's the use case that's going to drive future value. People will look at KPIs that give an indication of value for as long as they continue to do so. If, however, there's a clear understanding that value is coming from other services, other ways of connecting, other ways of using that connectivity, the attention will shift. So for those that keep focusing on the past, they run a real risk of being left behind the market, because the true indicators of value that will drive more innovation, more investment, cheaper debt to grow and scale will be the ones that others are actually innovating in today, whilst everyone else is looking after the past.
One area which I was fascinated when we spoke last time and I heard your presentation was really how you merge really the growth with the factor of green. Yeah. How to really drive the environmental agenda fully aligned with the kernel of the growth.
I think over the last few years, any challenges and concerns about the importance of the green agenda are beginning to be set aside in a really serious way. Green investment funds have been incredibly popular. They've raised a huge amount of funds, but they've rarely been fully deployed across the globe on a global basis. And the reason for that is that there has to be a proven business case for these investment funds. They're not doing it for the sake of it or because they understand the importance of the planet alone. There has to be a business case here. And one of the things that's really key in communication services is that you can change the way businesses operate, such as that when they have to meet their green targets, which are now universally adopted by governments and organisations that understand the importance of this for consumers and for businesses they work with. There's a real economic case that says that we're not looking for you to spend more money, we're looking for you to generate greater returns, some of which will fund the innovation that helps you reach your targets.
And I would even go further. The question is, how do the operators, even seeing it, they had it at their grasp to get into this market? What is preventing them currently? What are their challenges?
In my head, I think we have to take a step back and again think about an ecosystem of solutions that actually come together in a really simple way to make it easier to scale. Operators provide the connectivity, that's always essential, but again they need to think about how they provide global connectivity. So it's not good enough to cover regionally through terrestrial alone. It'll need to be regional with multiple terrestrial players, but also additionally potentially some non-terrestrial where it's economic to do so. That links up to the solution providers, but they will need funding, because if you're paying for that connectivity, you need to have funding that allows you to scale your business. So I see that there's a partnership opportunity again here, bringing in the likes of the hyperscalers who've got the platform play that can underpin the solution from multiple different types of these solution providers with the connectivity. So you basically create an ecosystem that has the application providers knowing how to reach their market, because there's a good platform for them to provide that to. You have connectivity providers providing the connection that is seamless, easy to buy, but is a one-stop shop. It's not a solution in one geography or in one segment. It is the unique solution that provides security, provides continuity of service, it provides ubiquity of service. And the advantage of that is you actually create an ecosystem that makes it easier for those green funds that have been raised over the years to be deployed.
If I imagine an operator today, what do you see the challenge of them being able to operate in this new market? What do they need to do for themselves?
The future models will by nature be quite lean in their economic model, because it is using digital solutions, it's using data very effectively, it's using AI systems to make decisions on a rapid basis, and it's driving value as a consequence through cost reduction and revenue growth very, very quickly. But you do have to think about the ways of which we've grown up as operators over the last 20, 30 years in particular. We've had very, very complicated systems as we've tried to manage those traditional KPIs around voice and data ARPU. When I first came into communications, we were pricing by the minute, and we made some calls cheaper after 6 p.m. in the evening and some calls cheaper depending on who you called. All that complexity was built into our systems, into our processes, into the way we assess customers and the way that we served customers. The market over the last 10, 15 years has moved away from that into much simpler, you're connected. Wherever you are, whatever time of day it is, whatever speed you want to operate at, you're connected. That complexity that sits underneath the past solutions still sits there. We've changed the marketing messages, we haven't changed the way we operate. Now, it's never a good, easy time to try and simplify, but if you don't, you'll continue with that legacy cost base whilst you're trying to be innovative and agile.
I feel almost like the operators are held back by their corset or a skeleton, which unless they shed off, they will never be able to progress into the new world.
I think the skeleton analogy is a very, very good one, because it does constrain as much as provide a framework. It's a framework that's understood by investors, operators alike. They understand it, they can talk about it in a way that makes sense. It helps with investor relations and people understanding current value. But at the same time, as you say, it constrains their ability to think about things in a different way. And when you're actually looking at people who don't have that legacy cost base, that don't have that complexity, they don't have the history embedded with price plans and propositions that go back 30 years that don't actually add any real value to the end user,